if you're trying to convince somebody else that a certain truth claim is true, then of course you will have to provide evidence. Like if I'm trying to convince you, that I don't know, there's life on Mars, then of course I'm going to have to provide evidence to you in order for me to convince you that is true, right?
Correct. Although that, yes, I would say that's correct. I would just say that, depending on what the claim was, that there may be inherent differences between the claims that affect, like, whether the person may be willing to believe something without evidence, right? Like whether, if it's just some sort of like, run-of-the-mill, like, sort of claim, something that almost feels like arbitrary, then people will generally not. They have no reason. Oh, go ahead.
Believing something to be true doesn't mean it's true.
Of course not. That's what I mean. So you could hold, like, and in fact, many times people have good reasons to believe things that are false. Like, so they actually have all these good reasons, but the underlying thing is their belief is actually false. And then you flip it around, and people have bad justifications, but they're believing in things that are true. And so, like, that's the most you could be kind of saying, Bobby, about the theist person is they have bad justification for their beliefs. But don't you think most atheists have bad justifications for their non-belief?
Well, there is no... One doesn't have to justify not accepting something.
I'm not saying on Discord. I'm saying just, like, in life in general, like, if you were to... I would say there's a portion of atheists or non-believers who are actually, like, give it a lot of thought, but there's a very big portion that don't give it a lot of thought.
Yeah, but those are the same people that don't give unicorns a lot of thought, or leprechauns, or various other things.
Spaghetti monster.
Like, this is just silly, right?
What's the comparison? Wait. What's the comparison? I don't understand what the comparison to unicorns is meant to illustrate. What is that about?
Because when someone makes a claim about something and they don't have any evidence of it, then
who's making a claim? Who's making a claim? In people's everyday life, no one's. I'm not talking about, like, in a debate. I'm saying like, I have friends who are, like, they call themselves basically atheists or agnostics.
Sure.
Right? They're intelligent people, and if I were to try to have a conversation with them about the stuff we talk about on Discord, they would be, like, not prepared for it at all. They don't give philosophy and theological arguments for and against God. Like, I don't think they just give it a lot of thought in their lives.
To be an atheist doesn't mean you have to engage with philosophical debate. In the end, it can also boil down to empirics.
Yeah, but I feel like you're indicating
because the empiric. Go ahead.
Not considering something with no evidence, and that just seems silly. People are perfectly rational to be like, I don't really care that much about, this deist position because there's no evidence of it.
But that would be like saying, me saying they don't have evidence for their atheism. What's the distinction?
That makes no sense. You can't say evidence of their atheism.
Of course it does.
Position,
wait, okay.
That there's no evidence.
Now we're getting to, like, the heart of the disagreement that we're having. You think that someone can adopt, like, atheism without justification, but
it's just the same reason I can adopt being anti-leprechauns without researching it. Yeah. Like, this is just silly. Like, this is the default position.
Wait. If I said the same thing,
rational people are skeptical. That's the
if I said the same thing about, like, you're not comparing similar claims. Like, this is the mistake that you're making.
If you had overwhelming evidence, you would be able to convince people. But if you literally have nothing...
Look, it's totally inconsistent what you're saying. You're making it seem like belief in God is, like, a fringe view. it's the predominant view on the planet.
It should be. It should be.
No, but your point about
I agree. Large amounts of people are born into religiosity and they're indoctrinated to be religious. That's statistically the most common way people are religious, is because of where they were born and who they were born to. I agree that religiosity should be the more fringe position. It doesn't
matter what you think. It doesn't matter what you think. The reason I brought that up is you're raising this objection that if there wasn't all this evidence for it, then almost like you're privileging yourself and being you're putting yourself on a pedestal, being I am the evaluator of the evidence, and it's clear to me that there isn't any evidence, and therefore I'm totally justified in non-believing. And I guess what you're just describing it to is indoctrination, being brainwashed, being ignorant. You're basically saying throughout all of human history, all of the people that have found that there are sufficiently good reasons to believe in God, though you're just dismissing all of that as lacking any evidence, etc.
Hang on. What you're saying throughout all of human history, where are you getting this from?
I'm speaking colloquially. I don't mean to say today. I'm saying for thousands of years, people have held this belief. And what you're saying is all of that. You don't think that there's evidence for these people? Do you think they just did it because they were what?
People do not believe in a religion based on evidence.
Of course they do. What do you mean by evidence? What do you mean by evidence?
Psychology.
Okay. Can you define, not provide examples of what evidence means?
Most people
can we disagree?
Based on evidence.
Okay. By evidence, do you mean
don't take into consideration evidence to be religious?
What do you mean by evidence?
Any type of testable, reproducible things that we would label as facts or data, things that can be tested in a laboratory, unfalsifiable statements. There's a whole slew of things that are evidence that we would present as evidence, like in a court of law, right? So, in general, most religious people, they don't consider evidence for their religiosity. They consider their upbringing and their indoctrination. That's what they consider. They consider their community groups and what it is that other people will think if they do or say or change their opinion on stuff.
Okay, so do people generally, when people, let's just zoom out for a second, because you're making some pretty wild claims.
I'm not making
wild. These are not wild. These are
standard known stats.
Okay.
This is not wild.
Okay, I don't think you realize how outlandish what you're saying is. Because what you're saying is that people, the vast majority of people, right, who hold a belief in God existing, it doesn't have to be Christians. We could broaden it out, right? That these people don't apply what is generally considered to be logical reasoning or proper thinking about the world in terms of evaluating whether you have good reasons to believe certain things to be true, right?
Here. No. You made a statement that I was being retarded or something.
No, you're
research links between childhood, religious upbringing, and current religious identity. Protestants, Catholics, current religious identity raised in various combinations. You're just full of shit. You're just lying your ass off.
I don't know what you think you're pulling up with the survey. Okay, I'm making a very broad statement.
I made a very simple, clear statement that the majority of people that are religious are born into it and they're indoctrinated, and you called that fringe. You're full of it. That is clearly not fringe.
I never said that.
Did he say fringe? Someone, please tell me he said fringe.
Dude, if you keep talking to me like that, I'm just going to leave the room. So calm the fuck down, okay? Number two.
You said I was lying.
I never said you were lying. Number two.
You said fringe.
Dude, chill out for a second. I said the word fringe in response to you saying something, and I said to you, you're responding as if theism is some fringe view, like the minority position, right? And then you conceded, no, it's not. Actually, most people believe in God. And then you changed it to that their beliefs are without evidence. And then I asked you what evidence was. we should agree that all evidence is a good reason to believe something is true, right? So people have good reasons for their beliefs. Generally, wouldn't you agree with that?
No, it's usually motivated reasoning.
Yeah, people can certainly implement motivated reasoning. I'm making a broader statement. People generally have reasons. Doesn't mean they don't believe weird things. Doesn't mean everyone has false beliefs. I'm just saying, generally speaking, right?
It can also be fallacious, by the way.
Now, Bobby, you're making this claim, and you're just saying, but no, when it comes to God, they don't have the good reasons anymore. They don't have any evidence anymore. That's what you're saying.
Hang on. Let's evaluate this, okay? You're part of a particular sect of religiosity. Everyone that you would label as a cult, right? Let's say Muslims or Hindus or whoever, are they incorrect in their assessments and their belief? Like, do they lack evidence for their position?
No, I think most of them are worshiping, like, the referent for, like, their worship is the same God in terms of, like, if it's an Abrahamic, like, faith. Muslims, Jews, Christians, but then even the other religions.
Hindus are worshiping the Abrahamic God. Is that what you're saying?
Dude, can you hear me or not? Because I'm getting concerned like you're not listening to me. I just said the 3 Abrahamic faiths: the Jews, the Muslims, and the Christians. Okay. Then, obviously, the other religions can also be worshiping sort of the same type of God, right? So that's why I'm saying. Now, what actually started this debate was, you don't think that people need evidence for atheism, right? You said that. So you're going to backtrack on that, or are you going to stick with that?
No, I said the position is rational when someone dismisses something
Are
without...
you going to backtrack or stick with people don't
Things that don't exist don't create evidence. Do you understand that?
No. You said that atheists need to be justified in their position. And I'm like, that's silly. Their position is the default position of this thing has no evidence.
It's been so debunked. Dude, you got to read some literature, man. Do you read philosophy literature?
No.
I still think you guys are equivocating on evidence.
It's a default position to atheism, dude. That's not even like a controversial statement.
What do I have to prove? What evidence would I have to produce to say that I don't accept something or I don't believe something?
Sure, excellent question. Good.
It's a dumb fucking question.
No, this is a good question.
Yeah, like what evidence do I present that I don't believe in leprechauns?
So, hold on. This is an overarching worldview, okay? We're not talking about normative claims. Even something like, do aliens exist? But we could talk about
atheism is not a worldview. It is merely the answer to a single question.
Literally what it means.
Do you believe?
No,
atheism.
It means atheism. Yeah.
No,
it means
atheism is not a worldview.
I'm not going to debate.
Atheism is an answer to a single question. Do you believe in God?
I don't care. That's very poetic. You should fucking put that on a bumper sticker. So the point is that that's how it's looked at, generally speaking, in philosophy. It certainly is a worldview that there are no gods. That's the worldview, and it impacts everything all the way down from morals, epistemology.
No, atheism doesn't say that there are no gods. That's your problem, is that you're not understanding the question.
You're right. I don't know.
What about, like, I don't know, maybe like theism is like just the lack of belief in a godless world.
What?
The atheism
maybe like theism is just the lack of belief in a godless world.
Whether listen, this is the semantic. My definition, you don't have to agree to it. I am saying the people that believe there are no gods, I'm talking about those people. I don't care whether you accept it or not. You understand?
Well, I don't care if I don't care. I mean, I think the Christians believe it.
Listen to me, dude.
I think Christians believe in. I think Christians worship green and yellow.
You're diverting the conversation. Okay, you started out with a good question, and now we're talking about the semantics of what the word atheism means.
Yes,
The point
because
is,
if we're going to have the conversation, we
Now,
have to agree on a term. We have to agree on terminology.
No, we don't. I'm going to answer your question. What you would do is you would compare, when you have two worldviews on the table, right? What you do is you compare them and you look for the virtues of each model.
Right, but
And there's
this is not a fair analogy or comparison because one of them is not a worldview. It's only the answer to one question. You can have a different epistemology. You can have a different moral system. None of those things are dictated by you being an atheist, so it's not a fair comparison.
God either exists or he does not exist. Do you agree?
Sure.
Oh,
I think he doesn't exist because there's no evidence, but go ahead.
With the it doesn't matter. With the definition that I'm using for God, he's mutually exclusive to all other gods. He's the ground of all being.
Just a basic theism doesn't even give you a worldview, really.
Just talk over me. That's great. Are you done?
Well, are you going to compare atheism, which would be like a lack of a theistic view, to just a general theism, not to like a Christianity?
I'm going to expect like an elevated level of like conversation in this room. And Bobby, I'm putting that on you since you're the room owner.
I'm actually asking. I'm asking you to. Can we at least agree on terms on what the terms are? Otherwise,
words have multiple meanings or usages.
Which is why we need to agree on what you're saying by what you're saying and what I'm saying.
Okay. We're gonna have a debate before the debate. That's what you want to do?
I think that apparently we need it.
No, we don't. That's the last thing the world needs.
I have a question. So, is there a word to describe? Here's the thing: if Baked Alaska wants to confront these specific type of people, is there a word to describe people who believe that God does not exist? You know, like in the affirmative.
That's called strong atheism.
That's called no. Look, you could add qualifier. Yeah, imagine being in a bar. Imagine being in a bar and you're telling the girl's like, you're like, I'm a strong atheist. That's what you would say.
Problem. Lunatic. Sorry. There's a problem with that, right? Because if you're calling that strong atheism, if atheism is just the absence of belief in a god, then you're saying, that's the strong absence of the belief. It's a strong absence of
No. What it means is, I will explain. Atheism itself is nearly the answer to a question. Now, there's agnostic atheism, which does not claim to have knowledge of an existence or non-existence of God. There's a difference between a belief claim and a knowledge claim. Strong atheism is that they're atheists. They're atheists because they don't believe, and they're also atheists in that they are asserting that there is no God. That is why that's the reason that we can, drop acid but not drop battery acid. Do you understand?
I understand. Yeah, I understand that, right? Okay, but I'm saying
So
the term itself is misleading.
Yeah, it's important to know. It's important to use the right terms because when you're talking strong atheism, that's somebody claiming to have a knowledge claim. When you're talking straight regular atheism,
sorry, Beck. I just want to say, like, the thing is, lunatic. I understand that, but I'm saying, like, it's a misleading term, right? Because as I'm saying, right, strong atheism, is just the lack of belief. It's absence of belief in a god. Then attaching the word "strong" to that, a strong absence of belief in a god, right? It's misleading, right? It gives the wrong impression.
Well, that's just the way that I don't make the terms, dude.
Yeah. I'm going to make a new term. I don't like that term. Okay, I think that term's rubbish. Okay, so I'm going to call it godless.
How about somebody who's a non-theist? How about
No. Non-theist wouldn't work either. Okay, because that's it. I'm going to call it godlessism. Godlessism. Okay, I've invented a new godlessism. Is here. Godlessism is people.
But it's not an ism, though.
Yes, godlessism is people who believe that God doesn't exist. Okay. Now, is there anybody who's making that affirmative claim in this chat?
I believe that God doesn't exist. I do not claim to have knowledge of that, though. I'm not making a knowledge claim.
I agree.
I believe It's whether or not
You
it's a
believe that
belief.
God.
It's a belief system. It's a belief thing versus a knowledge claim.
Okay. So do you think that it's most probable that God doesn't exist?
I do.
Yeah.
Okay. What is your basis for that? What is your evidence for that?
It's from the complete and total lack of evidence of a god.
Okay,
Which
but
is a literal fact.
evidence, the absence of evidence, like something like absence of evidence isn't evidence of absence, though.
There is more than just that. While I agree that that's sufficient, because that's sufficient for many other positions that we would take in this world, there is more, such as the fact that most religious people believe most other religions are false. So it seems silly to suggest that, you know, some small group is correct. There's also other evidence, such as the fact that historical study of text, time and time again, shows similarities of stories transferred, various types of copying with respect to stories and cultures. In general, we have very strong evidence that everything ever written was written by humans, right? That there doesn't appear to be any like difference between those claiming divine scripture versus those claiming, historical scripture, right? Like they look identical. So this is also evidence that there hasn't been a deity that like gave us fire or whatever, right? Everything's been very systematically written down, and you can literally see people's mindsets and cultures change over time in a slow fashion, right?
Okay, hasn't written a book. How is that evidence that there is no God? How is that pointing?
How is? I'm sorry. Say it again. How is it evident?
How is the absence of a book that has been written by God like evidence that God does not exist? Okay, because that's like me saying, okay, well, oh, I can look at history. Like, let me give you an example. Okay, that's like me saying, okay, well, let's say throughout history, there's a bunch of people, throughout history, there's been a bunch of people who claim to, interact, with aliens, right? Okay, even in the modern day, people say they've been adopted by aliens and things like that, right? Okay, so there's been people who claim to have some kind of interactions with aliens, right? Okay, but we don't have a book, that has been written by an alien. Okay, but is that evidence that aliens don't exist?
How
I would
about
say no.
the fact that we have no physical evidence of an alien? How about that?
But that's not evidence.
That when we look into these claims, that there's just an entire lack of evidence of supporting it, and usually a lot of these claims can be explained in other ways, a lot other more logical ways, more provable ways.
Yeah, so you're
We
misunderstanding.
have
You're misunstanding
it doesn't that
No. There is plenty of evidence that the position of thinking something is false due to lack of evidence is a good position to take. This happens repeatedly over and over again in our lives, right? I always give the analogy of my daughter telling me that she went on a magical school bus to the moon, right? This is clearly not true, and I'm in sound mind to accept that it's not true immediately at face value because of the number of times in our existence and our lives and the history of humans in which these types of extreme claims typically come up with zero evidence for them, right? And this is why it's the more default position to not take something immediately as possibly true, because of evidence that this doesn't pan out, right? So lots of evidence that extraordinary claims to be accepted, that they're more likely false if they can't provide
absence of evidence is evidence of of absence. Right, okay.
How about we rephrase it? How about we rephrase it? Okay. Absence of extraordinary claims is evidence that the extraordinary claims are incorrect or shouldn't be taken. Because it sounds like you're basically saying that I'm irrational for immediately dismissing my daughter's story. Am I irrational?
No, I'm not saying that. No, you're not, because in the case of your
why
daughter's
am I
story,
rational for dismissing my daughter's story